Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with Tricia Barker. Hi, Tricia. How are you?
Hi, Kathy. So good to see you again.
Yes, this is so great. Well, I'm so excited to learn more about everything that you do because you are a wonderful guide for people since you have such a talent for English, for writing, and for explaining a supernatural experience, basically, that you had when you had a near death experience in college. And I know you've been on TV, and I mean you've been everywhere. I'm so honored that you're on my little show, but
Oh,
but but I want to know. I mean, I think it's so interesting to put words to what you've done. Could you talk about that? Because I know you do poetry and you do writing, but words are condensed energy of the feelings that you had. Could you talk about words and your experience?
definitely. Thank you for that question. The other side is made up of energy and images. And I think with poetry, a lot of poets are sensitive and a lot of artists are very sensitive to the images. And so when I had my near death experience, most everything was communicated to me in terms of metaphors, but the energy was very powerful. So, in the last scene of my near death experience, I simply saw that I was going to be a teacher, that I was going to, work in schools and colleges, and that I was going to remind souls that they are either clouded by darkness, which is fear, or they are shining their own light and connecting to the light of divinity and pulling in that unconditional love and that light from the other side to manifest more of that light on earth. And it looks so simple. That metaphor was just a breeze over there, but we come back here and we're like, oh my God, it's so tough. Like when someone is in fear and they're threatening you and threatening your life, for instance, or when someone is, horrifically triggered here by the darkness and you have to deal with that darkness. If you don't have a strong connection to that light, it's very hard to get through it. And even with a strong connection to that light, we're all going to suffer grief. We're all going to suffer trauma. So how does that light help? It's a remembering. So I think simply just telling this story helps
Good.
people remember, connect to their own divinity and get through it. And then I'm really honest. I'm like, even as a near death experiencer, I had trauma as a child. I had trauma after the near death experience, and the body still has to process trauma. So
Right.
how do you overcome the big challenges that we have on earth? It's always a spiritual switch.
Right.
It's always that spiritual sudden, it's almost like the light switch turning on where you're like, I'm fine, I'm guided, I'm loved, I am a light that is connected to the light, and I'm going to be that light no matter how it manifests here on earth. No matter how long or short my life is here, no matter what, I am connected. And I just want people to remember that no, if they've lost a spouse, if they've lost a kid, if they've lost a job, if they, like these times are pressing on us, and then we're also picking up on the collective anxiety.
That's right.
How do you move beyond that? It's always divinity.
Right. But the thing that I wanted to let everyone know about you, that you didn't really go into yet, but you are a like translator for so Peter Panagore explains the mystic, but you actually take people by the hand and embrace them on your journey through your book and help them by using words to feel that. And I mean, that is a huge gift. Just like poetry is, where there's a sense of it, it's a remembering. And so I wanted to make sure people understood that you're such a talented writer and that your writing has so much more than just the surface information in it.
Yeah, so my love since I was a child has always been books. I grew up in the country and, I was an only child, kind of an abusive home, just lost myself in books and loved the written word, read at a young age. And so I think the light works through us where our talent is. If you're a doctor, if you're a surgeon, like angels work through you in
Yeah.
surgery. If you're a writer and you're a poet and you just love words, then the light is going to come through where there's love and where there's talent. And I have a life focus on it from childhood. I teach creative writing at the college level, and I love supporting writers. And there's always a certain, to artists and writers, there's a certain passion, like
Right.
almost ecstatic passion, that so some people call madness. And so you couple a near-death experience with that sensitivity, that empath sensitivity, that artist sensitivity, the light gets turned up a lot, and it's very it's an intense experience, but it's also beautiful. And what I love doing is making people feel through writing. So I
Right.
want them to step into my shoes and really feel what it was like to be this, wounded, agnostic college student who has this magnificent, near death experience that alters everything, and to just really feel what that would be like. And so I think a lot of the people who connect with me are empaths, have had a lot of trauma in their lives, or recently have had trauma and want that connection to the other side. Or, they like writing too, because when I wrote Angels in the OR, my hope was like, okay, I love Eat, Pray, Love and Wild and all these memoirs out there. Why can't I just be, that type of woman, that type of writer, and also write about a near death experience? And I
Right.
know, yeah, I know a lot of people write about their near death experiences, but I wanted to bring some of that academia and that mainstream culture of, just the literary tradition and couple it with a near death experience.
Yes, it's fantastic. And I think that with the reason I wanted to put focus a light on this is that I had a spiritually transformative experience, and I'm still gathering words to explain it and to be able to share it. I have feelings. I could project from my heart some feelings when I say a word, but as far as finding the words, it was so mystical and so out of this realm, to try to squish it into. It's like trying to put a big thing in a shoe.
It is. Like, how do you describe timelessness and multiple things happening at one time in one word or one sentence? It's hard. And, I think a lot of people, and I commend you for spending some time thinking about it, because I think a lot of people think, I had this experience, I'm divinely, like inspired, I'm just going to go write, as if writing is easy. And good writing is very difficult. And so, I worked on the near death experience chapter since, I don't know, 19, I mean, like it was, I know it was 2007, the first time I workshopped it. And the book wasn't published till 2019. So
Wow.
and I didn't work on it nonstop, but, I gave those first chapters to professional writers. And one of the things I'll never forget was someone in the group saying, and he was agnostic, he was like, angels sent beams of light into your body. What, like lasers? They're like, and I was like, okay, I guess I've got to explain this better. Because that's what he was picturing in his mind. Just because we know what we saw, we may not be communicating it
Of course.
in a way that guides people through the same experience.
Well, the other thing is that I think that when you've had an experience like this, you have a different way of looking at life anyway. You wonder. You don't label and categorize the same way. You're open to trying things. That's what somebody said, that near death experiencers are type A people, because they come back, it's like, I got a second chance, I'm going for it. But I think people that have had spiritually transformative experiences also feel that way, because you get so excited about being able to co-create with the other side. It's there, the unseen is available, uh,
Yeah,
by your call. If you, I mean, the angels are sitting around like this, waiting for.
exactly. And even I forget that. I'm sure you forget it too. Like you get caught up in a moment. You're like, wait a second, I can call in the angels. Like
That's
I can
right.
really ask.
That's right. Well, that's the thing is that last year's the Ions online conference event, the theme was "You Don't Die Alone," and that was a lot of the theme was, hey, how do you convince people that there's lots of unseen resources for you that are real and are they were assigned to you. You made a relationship with them back in spirit, and they're hanging around waiting for you to play, and you're missing all that opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about angels, but they don't really talk about calling on them unless it's drama or threat or something. And I call on them every day. I open up the Akashic Records. I work with Saint Germain. I call on them every day.
I
Do you do
call on
that
them
too?
to take my vitamins because I'm like, hey, go ahead and make these a little bit better for me to absorb and help my body in certain ways. And that theme was so beautiful at IANS last year. And I do some medium readings, and a lot of times like really difficult deaths, suicides, and those. A lot of times the guardian angels are right there, and they just like hold that person the minute they transition over and take them away for a little bit so they don't have to see the shock and trauma that they are leaving behind. And it's really beautiful to see people transition, and that gift from the near death experience. I love it. I love talking with people who are in grief, and I love being with people who are transitioning, because to me that little moment where it all turns, and yes, this physical body can be painful, but the minute people transition over, it is just amazing. And you know I know that triggers some people, because of religion and all that, but I don't think it should. I think enormous compassion and enormous unconditional love should really just be a relief to us all, because no one is perfect. Everyone has a light and a dark side and shame. And to know that we're loved that much through it is really beautiful.
Well, the other part of it, I think, that when you bring up shame, I think that is part of the Course in Miracles talks about forgiveness, and it's forgiveness of yourself and others. It isn't always the others. It's a lot of programs that you're running that either you intuited or you got the wrong memo, but you're running these shutdowns. Basically, they're making you play smaller, reducing your parameters of thought. And so what happens is all of a sudden you get cracked open. And that's what I think this time is doing, don't you? I think this time, we're in chaos, but there's a way to stay in that center, in the eye of the storm also.
Yeah, and it's taking a little bit more work. It's taking more meditation, it's
Yep.
taking more time in nature. And I know when spiritual teachers are under pressure, that I know that some people are snapping, like I'm seeing it, but I'm also seeing people open. And that's what's beautiful. I'm back in the classroom, teaching at a community college, and it's both a little terrifying and a little beautiful too, so it's a mix of emotions to really support people in person again.
Right. That must be fantastic. And the gratitude for that opportunity, because you've had the contrast of just doing everything online. That's got to be a lot. But I'm seeing a lot of people. It's almost like a light bulb comes on. I mean, they go, oh, um, what it's like it's almost Tamara Overyet uses a computer as an analogy of what we've got. We're a computer, and we've got our operating system, which might be the ego or the parasympathetic operating system. And then you got all these programs, and some were from your parents and your grandparents. Some may even be in your DNA. Some may be from your past lives. Who knows where they came from? But this is a time where we could, if we're guided, to release some of those. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, you're speaking my language. So I do theta healing with people, and that's very much in line with removing. Our ancestors went through a lot, and we carry their DNA in our bodies, and so just removing some of those programs that help them survive that we don't need now. We need a different program. The connection to the light is really powerful. And then, of course, past life regressions and letting go of some of those shocks and traumas from the soul and reminding the soul that, hey, this is a new time. I know that the next 5 years are going to be about healing for so many people and for much of humanity. This is something that is happening. And I also know that instead of focusing, a lot of people want more of a connection to divinity and more of a connection to spirit. I'm saying just believe that you can and start doing it. And I am seeing people step into that role more, and people who were never open before, they're open in ways that it's shocking. I can say things in classrooms that I could never say before, and suddenly a group of students understands, because we've spent a year and a half, a lot of us, in isolation, in really getting introspective. And so there's this openness to what can I do from that realm of greater inner power? What can I do to overcome anxiety? What can I do to manifest something new in this world? And people are ready. And it's exciting. It's really exciting.
Well, and that's partially your presence and you holding that frequency, whatever you're teaching. I know you're teaching English and writing, but you could be teaching anything, and just that frequency, we're all like tuning forks. So you holding that divine presence potential for anyone to pick up on creates a whole different experience for them, because it's filled with possibilities. I do think we're here to wake up as many people as we can to their divinity. That's my mission. And that's a way I feel that it was like last March, it was like game on. Okay, this is what I came here for. Tell me what to do. But
oh, right. That's the way I felt too. That's interesting that you felt that way. I was like, all right, the veil's open. I'm going to start talking more about it, and we're just going to do this.
That's right. Well, the thing is that the opportunity for people to accept, they did a poll, and I think it was like 80% of people in North America, believed in ghosts. So it's okay. So you believe in ghosts, but you're not sure about reincarnation. But you can see that there's all this paranormal stuff happening. There's all of the quantum physics stuff is taking us out of the Newtonian material concept to quantum. And that's where all the potential could be, is bringing that into here.
I love it, because why people believe in ghosts is usually the ghost has crossed the veil in some way. So a wine bottle cork opens, or the lights switch on and off, and people always want those physical manifestations to come through, and those are amazing. But I just stop and I say, come on, haven't you ever felt like this loving energy that's it's almost like it's touching your hair, and you just know, oh, I'm loved. There's a presence that, an angelic presence, or just a very loving presence near me. And I was like, that's just as real as these physical manifestations. And then you start believing in yourself more, and you follow intuition. You follow what you hear from that realm, and it has a frequency that's different from imagination. It's usually a frequency of love, one that you kind of recognize at a soul level, and you go, oh, that's not me, because my mind would have said something else, but my soul recognizes that deeper voice.
Perfect. I think everyone has access, and I do believe that our evolution of our species is that more and more people are going to get upgraded from this photonic energy that's coming from the sun and from the center of the galaxy, and affecting our sun and affecting our whole solar system. And our superpowers are going to be available, but we have to have the imagination to get out of the boxes, the programs that we've already been, and our parents meant well. That's the programs they got. It wasn't like anyone was trying to do this to you, but you picked it anyway. I mean, that's the other part. Do you want to talk about that? How you deal with the fact that, to explain to people that this, at a certain point before you embodied, you picked this
Well,
experience?
you know, I can talk about it more so in the near death experience, and I can talk about what it looked like from that soul perspective versus what it looks
Okay,
like here. And
great.
it looks so easy from the soul perspective. And I think that's what everyone, there's a lot of memes about looking at my soul contract and throwing a fit now. I actually signed up for this.
What
And
was I thinking?
yeah, I know, but over there, it was just like, oh, I'm going to encounter some people who are lost in fear. I didn't think these people were going to terrorize and traumatize me or physically harm me,
Yeah,
or, like I didn't think that any of that was going to happen. I just thought, oh, I'm going to encounter some people with fear. I'm going to remind as many people that I can that love is all that matters, all that we take with us. And so your soul is perfectly fine with signing up for that. Your physical form, which is different, is going to say, what?
it's like, where's my armor?
Yes.
You sent me back down here. Where's my shield and my?
Yeah, and then there's a lot of spiritual intellectualism,
Oh,
which is not the same as connecting with people on that heart level. And so I just always try to remind people compassion is a good thing. So, when even if someone quote signed up for it, they're still suffering.
oh, oh, yeah. No, and the thing is that I think we're all, nothing comes into your field unless it's for you as well. So if you're helping someone with compassion go through whatever they're going through, because we all have interesting experiences that we get to learn from. I'm still, I, I guess I look at it and go, what is this that I'm a match to? Or what is it that I get to learn from? So sometimes it's just me learning boundaries,
Yeah.
which I don't do that well. I'm still doing learning, but but do
Yeah, that's a
you,
big issue. When you connect to unconditional love, you do see the divinity in every person. And that's great when you're a spiritual teacher, when you're helping them write, when you're doing various things to help people evolve. But when you're just having a friendship or a romantic relationship, a lot of those social norms and natural boundaries come down, and it's easier to be victimized by the unconscious parts of people.
right. And but then there's a way for you to also go back to your resources and fortify yourself and be guided through. Because
Yeah.
I still feel like people go, oh, I got to make the right decision, and if there's a fork in the road, I don't really think that left might be shorter,
Yes.
but right will get you there too, eventually. I mean, if you're supposed to go over there, I do think that this is for us,
Yes.
this whole experience. And the game that I like to play, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I think you do, is bringing more light into here,
Yeah.
as part of the way to transmute negative, like try to be a lighthouse as much as possible.
Yeah, and I have a question for you. I hope you don't mind.
Oh,
Have you ever followed intuition and kind of been like, "What? I'm following intuition, and this is what it's turning out to be." And like in the unfolding, it's really messy and really, and then it gets better. Have you ever had those moments
oh
where,
yeah, oh yeah. A lot. The thing is that you can, because of the program or the thought form that you are using as your guiding principle, if it is not aligned with higher self, it shows up and people show up to represent it until you release it. And that happens, and it's not fun. It's lots of tears, lots of you know, because it everything is a reflection. This physical body even is a reflection of thought, of our our soul creating us. So yeah, no, I still cry a lot.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to bring that up because I wanted people to not think of intuition as this magic wand. It's like you can be guided. This is going to be good for you, but here's your goal. And so you have to climb this mountain, and sometimes you fall and stumble, and you twist your ankle and have to wrap it and have to wait a week, and then you're still going up for that goal. And it's not as easy. It's not like, woo, you have a, just an
Right.
elevator up to the top.
Well, and the other thing I find now with there's so many decisions to be made because everything seems like it's speeding up. I mean, time is like, and so I'm testing on, instead of where I used to go, oh, let me think about it, or I'd use my logic. I just right away test and go, is this mine to do? Is this for the highest good of all? And I have to test because I'm not sure that this is the guiding. Well, even if it's intuition, you have to assume that even if someone's brought into your field for you to consider, like I do marketing, so for me to consider working with, somebody came in and then I'm getting, yes, I'm supposed to work with them, but I don't think I'm supposed to work with them to do the project. I think I'm supposed to work to see if I say no.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so it's still a gift to me and it still came to me as a lesson for me, but I think I'm supposed to say no. So you have to, I don't trust this totally right now.
Yeah, I'm finding the same thing. I'm energy testing, and I'm shocked by some things. I'm glad you brought up that that moment because I think no, my logical brain is like, no, 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 and then I'm told energetically to go in that direction because it is meant to heal something. It's meant to release something. It's
Right.
meant to really kind of push me almost like at warp speed to that next level, even though it's transformative and hurts in the process. I mean,
Right.
we
Right.
used to be like, okay, I'm in this cocoon and now I'm a butterfly. It's like we're becoming all kind of butterflies all the time,
Right.
just
Well,
transitioning so quickly.
it's so that we can hold more light, because all of those emotional programs, I believe, are dark energy stuck in our field, and a lot of it's our central nervous system, because it's trying to stay alive. Um, what a concept. Um, and but I mean, the more we're electric beings, so the more that we can release these blocks, which are stuck emotions, whether they're this life or the other lives or family, they're stuck. And so the opportunities that reflect a way for you to see it, shed light on it. In the Saint Germain work, they call it obscurations to the light.
Oh, I like
It's
that.
true. It's
Yeah.
true, because everything is potentially light here, but we have put these other themes on it until we don't. So if we don't work with that person or do that thing, and if we don't resolve that issue, at the next one comes just like them. Um,
Oh, I know. It's it's intense.
Yes, it is. But that's what this time is. I mean, I'm very hopeful in seeing people making better conscious choices. This is conscious business zone. The conscious business owners that watch this show are are servant leaders. They're taking care of themselves, their employees, and their customers. And when we talk about what you're doing, either with the creative writing, the writing opportunities workshops that you have, or the theta healing, there's all sorts of ways for them to be reinforced. The writing allows them to get their story out and maybe heal that, and the theta healing allows them to release the aspects that no longer serve.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask you, as you know, a lot of my students at the community college level are going to go into business or various things. What would you say to a group of young people who are becoming more conscious and want to create a new world? What's some advice that you would give to them for creating a conscious business?
Well, this is supposed to be your interview, but I used to teach a class at the business school here on cause marketing. And cause marketing is where you give a percentage of the proceeds for every sale to a cause. And a lot of there's a there's so much marketing now that works on you focusing on values. And so what I was explaining to them, and I haven't taught this class for a while, but was that business isn't war. And they kind of went, it's not. And that's what I would try to get them to see is, how is this business peace? How is this business a way for us to unify and to share and to elevate and bring everyone's gifts in? Because I see business now as a circle, not as a pyramid anymore. And the circle, the leaders in the circle, not in the middle. They're in the circle.
Can I quote you on that? Because I really needed to hear that. So that's something that I want to share with students and I want to share with the world. Like, that makes so much sense to me. Business isn't war. It's really something else. It seems like it's about relationships, because when people are combative and competitive, and that's something I'm actually going to talk about at the IANS group. Like when we're all together and working together for the same goal of elevating everyone, then spiritual businesses become brighter and more electric. Then all businesses become more electric when it's about personal relationships, you know, when it's about helping other people, when it's about elevating humanity. And that idea of peace versus war is just so important, so incredibly important, because that's the difference between, you know, this person is competing with this person versus we're all helping people. And hey, let me help you because you're helping people over here that I'm not helping. And if you're doing that, then I'm doing this. We're making the world better.
Well, each one of us have this amazing opportunity to co-create with the universe with our particular gift. And each one of us, we're like puzzle pieces. We're different. So to put a team together where you identify and enjoy each other's differences rather than abuse or use people for their differences, that's a whole different model. I mean, there's a lot of conscious businesses out there that are doing this. And the leadership, the reason I was so excited that you come on again is I see you as a resource for them, because they need reinforcement too. You know, they're giving, and they need the opportunity to receive as well.
Beautiful. It's true. We do need to support one another in these times as well. And I find that spiritual community is important, you know, that whether it's online or whether it's in person, outdoors, whatever it is, there's a sudden understanding that we're stronger together. You know, we're stronger in groups.
Well, a lot of this is the full cycle of the indigenous work. I mean, the indigenous, if you go to any of the original setups, some of them were matriarchies. Um,
I know. That's
but
one of my themes that has not been always understood, but I've always been at odds with the patriarchy. Like I think I was born with the hope in the 70s, that I could be sovereign as a woman, that surely I was, my ancestors and, this culture's dream of a woman who can finally be sovereign. And it's been a little harder than I thought it would be.
right. Well, I think that's true about all of this, but the thing is that it might still be a great driving force for you as a contributor. I mean, a lot of the near-death experiencers are boldly coming out, just like you wrote your book, you were on TV, then you've done these incredible programs for 4 years where you really you gave people a platform to have the discussion that, again, it's been taboo. That you talk to these near death experiencers, a lot of them didn't tell anybody for 15 years or more because they were thought, oh, it was just an illusion, it was the drugs. They didn't, although it impacted their lives and changed them.
Yeah, I'm glad I was a rebel, and I'm glad I was really sure of myself, because I never once thought that. I mean, the only thing I felt in the hospital around that is I was afraid the drugs would, like I had surgery, had the near death experience, and then I was on morphine for 9 days in the hospital. But I was afraid that morphine might make me forget some of it. But I was really adamant about what I experienced. I mean, I was telling everyone I knew it, and even people were, kind of making fun of me and not really believing what I'd experienced. I was certain, and I just knew it, and I understood that this had been a huge transformation, and it was massive. And what's so beautiful about it is that it got brighter over time. It never, other memories fade, and that one is so unusual because it was that opening to that other realm that I never lost it. Never had to fear that the drugs or that anything in the hospital would dull that connection.
That's so perfect. That's so perfect, and we see that a lot with the people. But the thing is, like I talked to Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, and he had 4 generations on both sides that were psychic. So it wasn't like, oh, Mark, you're making this up. Go to your room. It was like, you did? Cool. Let's show you what else. So I
Wow.
mean, the thing is we didn't get that. We had to sort of go, okay, I see and know more than what these other people do. I'll just keep my mouth shut until it was time to you couldn't hold it anymore, basically.
Yeah. I could see where that support would be great. Not having it and believing in yourself helps. Like but introspection and writing also helps. I always tell people, even if no one around you is believing you, that's why writing is important as a therapeutic tool, if nothing else. Journaling, that accesses your higher self. There's so many times you'll write something and you'll look back many years later and go, I knew exactly what was going on. Like my higher self knew in that
Isn't
moment.
that amazing?
Yes.
It's amazing. Well, do you find that a lot of people that you work with in for the writing classes have had trauma? Is that a lot of times they're processing trauma?
Yeah, what I've found working at community colleges, and I make a little joke. I don't think the students are mine. Not every student is this way, but I joke that I turn kids on the street who were drug dealers for 15 years into business professionals, and I turn prostitutes into nurses. So I'm dealing with levels of society, like who they did not think a lot of times that they were academics. Yeah, I get the kids right out of high school too, who just lived ordinary lives. But I get a lot of traumatized people at the
Wow.
community college level who are letting go of big trauma, deaths, suicides, gang violence, like a lot of things that are pretty high level coming out of prison. Like there's some high level trauma that's being processed, and then there's just the ordinary trauma that's all too common. When I worked in junior highs, 1 in 5 at one school of my students, it was experiencing some kind of abuse at home, whether it was emotional, physical, or sexual.
Wow.
When I got that statistic from the person who was counseling them, so this is, maybe there were more, these were the students who were actually coming to the school counselor to talk about things. I was like, maybe 1 in 4 of my students are falling apart. And so I started teaching meditation to junior high students. It's like, we gotta bring the light here somehow. This is, we need some real intersection of something that's going to help. And so,
Beautiful.
trauma, writing about trauma helps, and writing about your confusion helps, because I think at all ages we're processing something, and writing it down allows the higher self and the brain to go, okay, let's work on this.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. I didn't realize that that trauma was that prevalent, but some of the people, the amazing healers I've worked with, several of them have been traumatized, and actually that caused them to have out of body experiences at a young age, and then they learned their superpowers from it. So, and a lot of times that's their calling. They had that trauma and then they heal others from it.
Yeah, it's quite common. I was surprised how many people who have been sexually assaulted as children, remember an out of body experience where they're looking down on that, and that's a tough initiation into spirituality, but it is an initiation, and that's where you send a lot of compassion to yourself, and you're both traumatized in the physical, but you're also awakened on another level, and so it's an interesting journey.
Yes. Well, I don't know that there's that many spiritual teachers that really address it in that way. And so I've been very, very pleased with some of the people I've worked with, that they're just magical beings. They're like fairies, or I mean, I don't know, they have so much light, and it's because of they must have had the experience so they could help others. But again, that's my perspective. I don't know. You still, there's a lot of things that are still unfolding. It's like there's a game being played on 5 levels.
Yes. And being trauma informed is great. I learned theta healing from Dr. Allison Snowden, and she's amazing. Her story of the near death experience, she was, it's a tough one. She was 15, run over and sexually assaulted, and had, in a foreign country, and had, an awakening and a full near death experience, and kind of didn't want to come back to that body. And she had like many years of healing physically. So she has that physical healing, that trauma informed knowing, and she's great. If you are traumatized and you go to someone who is a healer at that level, they're not afraid of your trauma. They step right into it, and that's kind of rare to find in a healer. So I think it's great, that people like that exist and can add.
Right. Well, the thing that I guess I'm hoping people understand is that this opportunity to start clearing things now, you don't have to have a near death experience. You don't have to have the full spiritually transformative experience, which kind of it changes you so much. It's actually, you have to reorient to reality. You can actually start noticing the repetitive in your play, the repetitive characters that keep showing up. Right?
Yes. And I'm it's not that I'm jealous of them. I'm really happy for people who get to awaken more gently, like at a retreat, and they're meditating by the ocean, and they have an experience. Like, I want that for everyone. I don't want it to be stress, grief, trauma, loss, horror of this physical journey that eventually snaps us out, or near death experiences of this play. I want it to be just, that more and more people awaken through meditation.
Right. Well, I think that that's what I had mentioned before. I really feel that's what's happening. I think that we're going into the age of Aquarius, where there's going to be so many people that are aware of being empathic, which is the first step of awakening, and then they're going to need people like you to help them deal, because all of a sudden they're going to be sensing more than this. So that's the first step. I kind of see it as a bridge to the next, you start over on this side of the bridge with it being an empath, and you walk over to a more awakened, maybe soul reconnection opportunity. And so there's so many people that need tools, a toolkit.
Yeah, I agree. That walking in another person's shoes and that growth of empathy is important. And that's why I still love teaching at the college level, because when people come together and they share their writing, or they get together in groups, even if it's not a quote spiritual group, sometimes it's better when it's not, because people are more real. And when I find that in academia, I find that students kind of love each other. They kind of like go, oh my God, that person thought about suicide, or that person lost this, or that, they see the humanity in each other, and they open to accepting the class, even with all their differences. And that first step is what teaches empathy, is actually caring about another person's experience. And, empaths care about everybody's experience, but I think the awakening to oneness is just the beginning, and we hear too much in society about narcissism growing through social media, and like a lot of the negatives. But it's like, if you get involved in the world, the work of the world is real, and the work of the world is breaking down those barriers.
Right. I do think, I mean, even I have a 32-year-old daughter, and I even saw when she was in college and graduate school, I saw how much that generation is different than my generation, where they really were, it wasn't us versus them, it was us. It was a group mind. And I think you would be able to speak to that at the school, but that group mind it's getting us ready for telepathy. But we got to clean up, and the internet is getting us ready for telepathy, but we got to clean up a lot of this before you can have instantaneous connection like that.
Yeah, and then you've got to really look at yourself, like, is that, and it gets confusing in close relationships, is that negative perception of someone coming from the negative thoughts they're thinking of themselves, or is it you, or like what's going on? So it gets intense, I think, when you're aware, and then you're in the energy of other people. So empaths have to learn how to shut it off, how to
That's right.
protect themselves, how not to be so manipulated by the thoughts of others around them, but
Right.
open it up and feel it.
Right. But the kids, I have a lot of hope in because they're our future. I have a lot of hope that they sort of intuitively get the group mind more than we did. It wasn't part of our training, was more competitive, and be the best, win the race, whatever, all of that conditioning, even in sports. And then you have this group, it's now, you see a lot of soccer, and a lot of team sports.
Yeah, it's true. Like and there's a negative and a positive to everything. And if we can hold on to the positives from the past, but also embrace the positives of the future, and just be aware of the downsides, it's important. I think the awareness is that, you know, social media, the internet, and all of that has a positive. So now people are talking about narcissism. They have all these groups where they can go, no matter what they're dealing with personally, a divorce, loss of a kid, whatever it is. There's support for people, and they feel one with that group of people who have lost. And this is around the world. We have massive amounts of support
Right.
available to us, and groups. But then we also look at social media and we go, yeah, some of it's just image driven and ridiculous and superficial, and just how many likes do you get, narcissism and publicity and all of that. And so it's both. It's there's both that are coming to the surface, that individualism, that competitiveness, and then also that community. So what is it you're going to choose? Are you going to choose more often community, or are you going to choose more often competition?
Right. The opportunity to grow, and well, this time period of us being shut down, I think has been a way for a lot of people to find their tribe, to find their community. And I mean, I was on one call with somebody and they were saying, I feel like I have sisters and brothers all over the world now that a year and a half ago, that my family doesn't get me. And
Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, like, I'm totally disconnected from family. And although I have good friends in my town, I think, the people who understand me the most are all around the world.
Right. Isn't that cool? And
Yeah.
so that's what, when you think about the way this all was designed, if it would have been designed 5 years before, I was a beta tester for Zoom. Zoom wasn't ready 5 years ago.
No.
And so it all was in like divine timing. So that's why I'm so hopeful and maybe deliriously led, that everything's for the highest good of all. And we just have to keep focusing it on that way, and see how we can bring that to the reality.
I agree.
Right.
I
So
agree.
thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's talk a little bit about your ions presentation, if you would.
Yeah, and this leads perfectly into it. So it's about spiritual community versus competition, and I know. So that's my talk this year. And my talk is really about how to support one another. And even within, IANS, or just, the internet in general, like you look at, Gaia, and, all the spiritual communities and all the people doing things. Like, I have never, like, I just think that I elevate people, and that's like what the light told me to do. And so I think if everyone comes from that place, then there isn't competition, that in general, there's no fear, that you can shine as bright as you want and I can too. And we're all just lead that way. And so when you really break that down, what does that look like? That's including people, that's being inclusive instead of exclusive. And there isn't like the popular table like at high school. There's the big round table for everyone, because that's more the ancient way. If someone is hurting but they've had an awakening, if they're new to it and they're young, we want to bring them into the fold and show them how to protect themselves, and how to have good boundaries, and how to grow. And if they're immature in some ways, we want to just hold them in that space and be the elders for them. We want to to not allow abuse in community as well, because that's been a big lesson. There's so many people who've lost faith in churches and spiritual communities because of the shock and horror of what's behind the scenes. So there's a lot of addressing shadows early on, and how to navigate that, and how to heal that. And then there's a lot of converging, like, you go out to, not to make fun of any parts of the country, I love California, would love to live there, but you go anywhere where people are more open, and there's so many ideas that are converging all at once. And I'm like, spirituality should be at a basis a little more simple. It should be, heart level compassion, bringing light, doing good for humanity. It's not an opportunity to argue that my theory is better than your theory, because that's not love.
Well, the thing is once people aren't open to learn from each other, then they've missed an opportunity. And when you're in conflict over my process is better than your process, or any of that, there's plenty for everybody. And everybody's on their own journey to find out the truth. of
Yeah.
who they are.
And it's a process. Like Course in Miracles, teaches this. We're all going to bring some ego to whatever it is, and so it's a process of shedding that. And man, I've shed so much ego, even just stepping out 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Like I've been humbled in so many ways, and I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad it happened, because that gets me more to my core of, okay, this is my mission.
Right, right. Well, I'm so glad that you did. I'm so glad that I met you. And I'm so also glad that you're going to be part of this virtual conference for IONS. There's over 100 speakers and workshops this year. And what's beautiful about this conference is the way that you can see and and connect to each one of the speakers and find the books you want to read, find the people you want to follow. Every single session is going to be recorded and held in storage for 90 days. So 3 months. So instead of watching Netflix or something else, you could watch this, and it will upgrade you. It will bring you so much joy and um, give you a sense of hope and possibility about what you're here to do, and maybe even blast open your heart.
Yeah, and it's the anniversary of IANS as well. And they've been an organization that has supported near death experiencers longer than any other organization. And they're really kind of the go to organization for that. And, I've been involved with them for a long time. First I thought, and this is what I'm talking about in that group too, is no matter where you are with your awakening or your near death experience, there was a time I just went to my little local community and I thought, okay, I'll just share there and get a little support. And then she connected me to a show. And the first show I was on was the I Survived Beyond and Back. And I thought, okay, wow, cool. I did TV, never do that again. Done. But then people started contacting me even from that show. And I was like, many years later, I was like, okay, maybe I need to put one video on YouTube, done. And then, it just, it evolves for people. And then after a while, they find their tribe, a lot of times through IANs and through these conferences.
Yeah, the thing that I found is the first one I went to was, I've been a local member, but the first one I went to, that was the big one, was in Colorado, and I think there were 400 and some people there, and it was like home. You could feel everyone's heart was wide open. Even just the field felt like, oh, this feels good. These people got the same memo I got. I want to play. And then in Philadelphia, that event was fabulous. That was
I was at both of those. We should have met.
I was teaching. I'm a volunteer, so I was teaching the community leaders about Facebook and
Oh,
marketing, and I forget, Zoom one year with Chuck. So I was always with the yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but I've heard that. I felt that, and I've heard that even from people who haven't had near-death experiences, that they say that's the closest they felt to heaven, when all of us are gathered in one group. That it's like, oh, we need a town like this. And
Right.
maybe near-death experiencers are meant to be leaders in that way. That if a lot of communities could look to us, for how to bring heaven to earth, how to bring that love
That's right.
to the planet, it might be a better planet.
That's right. And the thing that's absolutely wonderful is the resources that's available. As I said before, if people have had spiritually transformative experiences, or they've had some experience that they don't have the words for, very often by listening to these talks, you understand, you get the feeling, and then you get a way to express it, which is a huge opportunity for us, because all of us can have mystical experiences and reconnect.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kathy. It's been so much fun talking with you.
Yes, thank you so much. And again, the best ways to reach you, Tricia, is your website, or
Yeah, so triciabarkernde.com. You can make an appointment for theta healing or reading. I'd love to connect with you individually. That's mainly where my focus is right now that I'm back to teaching, is just connecting one-on-one with people. But I am going to put out a writing course soon, just
Okay.
just to have it out there, my advice and about how to translate, the spiritual experiences into writing. But also, I want to just answer people's questions, since I am a creative writing professor. Like, if you need to work on editing, if you need to work on dialogue, let's talk about it.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I can't wait to see that, because this information, this is going to liberate so many people in so many ways, and it's all about a healing journey back to that heart opening. And thank you so much for the work you do. It really means a lot to so many of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for the work you do too.
Okay.
Have a
Okay.
good day.
Bye bye.
Bye.